I have the pleasure to welcome one of the previous winner of the prize, Louis de Diesbach. Hello and welcome, Louis.
Yes, hello.
Louis is an ethicist and consultant at Boston Consulting Group. He examines the deep ethical implications of technology on human values and societal norms. He focuses his work and his writing on the impact that our use of technology has on our relationship with ourselves and with others. He recently published his second book, Bonjour ChatGPT, which questions how our relationship with chatbots impacts our ability to build community. So welcome to Louis de Lisbar. He's very productive intellectually. He has written 2 books and he's still very committed to ethical issues. And it's really a great pleasure to welcome him for this keynote on artificial intelligence and ethics in finance. So the floor is yours, Louis.
Indeed, it's a bit of a big question now. It's like you have ethics and finance, and which was already a pretty big topic, as Virgil explained. There's tons of stuff that can be discussed, but then also now you have AI, and I think if I've been invited here because indeed it's become a bit of a huge I was going to say huge mess, but that's not really, it doesn't really sound nice, but it's become a bit of a complicated issue. And the thing is, it's a bit like knock knock, who's there? AI, and AI is all over the place. So I had a chance to take a couple of snippets from big papers and newspapers that I guess such as the FT, New York Times, Fortune, The Economist, and so on. And as you can see, so AI is basically everywhere, and it raises new questions. It's like what's going to happen. And I wanted to focus here on finance for obvious reasons, but it's also a bit of a question like in a lot of other fields, such as healthcare, such as FMCG as well, such as industry. So let's focus on finance. But just for your information, when people say, okay, AI revolution is coming, it's I think it's an understatement. It's AI revolution is already there, it's already happening, and there's tons of stuff that have been happening for the past at least 5 to 10 years. Other people would probably say more, but that's a little bit thing. But of course, with the coming of ChatGPT, we have a lot of new stuff. So before we dive into the specific question of finance, I wanted to just have a bit of an overview on the main reasons why I say that tech is not neutral. It's probably something you've heard before, like, technology is like a hammer. You can use it to either like build a house or break a skull. So it can either be good or bad. It depends on the people. It sounds like I say this half jokingly, like the NRA slogan, it's like, gun don't kill people, people kill people. And so it's just like, okay, it's only the people using it it's going to affect the way that technology can be either good or bad. And I believe that's completely wrong. That's completely wrong, and it's actually a really good way of underestimating the impact of that technology can actually have on people. So there's a couple of reasons that I picked for. Some people take 5, some people take less, but it's just to give you a bit of a framework of, okay, how does technology actually impact the world we're living, and why is it like really not that neutral? So one is that technology embodies a specific value, which is efficiency or speed, or however you want to call it. But tech is basically built to make everything go faster, smoother, cheaper, eventually. So this value, the value of speed, of efficiency, it's been chosen, but it's not neutral. We could have like technology to make everything slower and embrace a new, I don't know, a new way that we look at life. It has not been the case. So the way we look at technology with this value of making everything go faster is not neutral. And of course, this impacts the world in many different aspects. I'm sure Julie could tell you a lot about how technology impacts the environment and the impact that it has. But overall, I mean, either the corporate world, the environment, as I said, politics, and so on, technology is not neutral and impacts it a lot. Second one is probably more an easy one, is like technology innovation relies on R&D, and R&D itself relies on investments, and what investors decide to invest in, of course, will impact the outcomes of the research and development. So if you have researchers, for example, I don't know, either at Microsoft, at Meta, or in different universities and so on, long story short, they need money. And who's going to give them the money, and with what ties, and what would they have to do to get that money, and what are they going to focus their research on, and so on. Well, it's not just because you look like a nice person and you look pretty clever that people give you money. You know, they will ask you to research this or that new technology, or this or that impact, or this or that question, and all of this will, of course, impacts the outcomes of the R&D. And this this for me is probably the biggest lever of technology being not neutral, is clearly that the outcome are driven by where does the money come from. And of course, in terms of ethics, that makes everybody really accountable for the question that they should ask themselves, all the researchers and so on. Okay, where does the money come from? Am I really neutral, etc.? But it's a tough question, and as you can see on lots of academic papers, in the end, they often say where does the money come from and so on. But some people simply cannot publish because they don't get the money to work on what they would like, because, well, no big company funds academics is really interested in this. So this is a big driver of where technology is going. The third one is, as you probably know, technology generates a lot of unpredictable outcomes. As I like to say, when Zuckerberg created Meta, or I mean Facebook in the time, he did not. I mean, I don't think he created it to foster polarization and online hate speeches and so on. However, that did happen, and so saying that technology is neutral is a little bit like saying, yeah, of course, with all the possible outcomes, I'm telling you that technology is not neutral. But you can't really predict the future, and how the technology is going to evolve. And so for me, it leads to two things. It leads to, one, being able to frame a little bit what's going to happen, but also regulate a little bit. People who've potentially follow me and have read a couple of stuff that I wrote know that I'm a huge fan of the EU and the regulatory work that they do, especially on tech. And I think the AI Act for that is actually a pretty big move. It's like, okay, we know there's going to be lots of unpredictable outcomes, and so we're not really regulating the outcomes. We're having a risk-based approach on the risk that technology can embody. And actually, it's a pretty good move. It's pretty clever. It's a nice response to all the people saying that technology will always be lagging behind. What the big sorry, it's a good response to people saying that regulation will be always lagging behind technology. And it's like, okay, if there's a risk of this, and that's, then you will have to comply with this, and that. And I think it's a pretty interesting move to the non-neutrality of technology. And then the second thing is that people who are able to grasp all the outcomes, they do not exist. And it's I think it's obliges all of us to have that humble posture in how technology is going to evolve, and to accept that sometimes it's going to get out of control, and that you will need help, or that you'll need further regulation, or further expertise to help you drive this. The last one is that technology shapes the world in which we live. I put a little bug there because I don't know if you know the story. So imagine you're taking a train from Brussels to Geneva to say hello to Virgil, and in that train there's a fly, and all the windows are closed, and that fly, it's flying all over in the train, and it's flying freely. I mean, nobody is actually deciding where the fly is supposed to go. But is that fly really deciding where it wants to go? No, it's actually going to end up in Geneva because it's in that train. And so technology, either you can decide that you don't want to use technology. You can decide that you don't want to, but in the end, you're a little bit, and we're all like that little fly on the train, is the way that technology shapes the world. It's moving the world in a specific direction. And that's as you guessed, really connected with the first piece, is that it's going into a world where things will get easier, where things will get faster, probably cheaper, and so on. And it's just something that you've got to keep in mind when you are building technology, or when you are interacting with technology, is that it is not neutral, and the way you use it is, or the way you build it is going to define the world in which we live. So this was just a couple of reasons, because as I said, I hear quite often that, technology is like a hammer and it's really neutral and so on. And before diving into finance, I thought it was a bit of a good reminder to go to like, no, it actually isn't, and you need to keep this in mind. So in finance, as I said, it's not neutral, but now that AI is coming, what are the ethical considerations? What are the things that we should keep in mind? And as I like to say, AI is going to impact everything. I mean, either it's like internal process, corporate finance processes, such as order to cash, either it's going to be like trading, like with high frequency trading, either it's going to be like merger and acquisitions and all the, the private equity business and so on. You're going to have huge impacts of finance, of AI in finance all over the place. And of course, in one way, it can be really good. I mean, we know that having generative AI help on order to cash processes can increase the cash flow and the customer satisfaction, and simply having a smoother and faster process. We also know that, with the HFT, so high frequency trading, you can have like a more fluid market, and algorithm helping traders to make better decision and execute trades a lot faster. And same goes for M&A. We have a lot of use cases helping either on VDD or sales material assistance to just help the people working on this to, long story short, make better deals. But then it comes with heavy ethical considerations and questions, like on order to cash, what do we do with the efficiency gains? If you have, I don't know, an accounting team with 10 people and you realize you can, have up to 30% of saving, what do you do? Do you decide that everybody is going to work 30% less for the same salary and you keep the entire team? Or do you decide that you're going to fire 30% of the team? That's not a technical question. It's a political question, it's an economical question, it's an ethical question, but it has nothing to do really with technology. Same goes for high frequency trading. What do we do when the machine screws up? What do we do if it's, unfortunately, and we know its main risk with HFT is, what do we do if at some point the algorithm just starts spinning and enters a vicious circle when it's actually like, deregulating the markets? Again, it's a bit of a non-technical question. Do we like pull off the plug? Do we decide that's okay, it's a risk and we'll have to live with it? It's, again, not really a technical question. And finally, in terms of M&A, and I put there like one of the big questions regarding AI is, how do we deal with biases in training data, which is a design feature of AI. It's not something, sometimes I read people say, yeah, but the biases, now that we know, we're going to erase them. It's like hallucinations. That's not possible. It's just part of the way it works. And because you have two choices, either you manually debiased the training data, but in a way that's also, deciding the own vision that you want to put in your training data, or you simply keep the training data as they are, but they will be biased no matter what. So what do you do with that? If, I don't know, for example, the training data pushes you to only invest in companies with full men board, and there's no women on the board, or if you only invest in, I don't know, companies with founders who are white and who went to that or that school, this of course has heavy ethical consideration and heavy impact on the life of people. So what I want to foster here is that, again, most of the questions behind AI, they're not technical. And it doesn't mean that we should be afraid of it. It should simply mean that we should pay attention. And there's one quote that I really like from Oren Nazione, who used to be the CEO of the Allen Institute for AI in San Francisco. He said that one of the reasons I don't like the discussions about superintelligence is that they're a distraction from what's real. So superintelligence is the fact that, machine is going to become better than us in basically any task, and that they will take over the planet or something like this. And so I really like this question because the way he frames it is like, okay, what are the real questions? And so, as I said, what do we do with productivity gains? What do we do to ensure diversity and inclusion? I talked about the environmental impact of AI, the algorithm biases. What do we do about technopolitics? The fact that some states, either the US, Russia, Iran, Israel, and to be honest, France, Belgium, UK as well, how do they use AI to simply impose sovereignty on other countries? What about that's a really philosophical question, but what about the notion of truth? What about the concept of truth? Is it still going to exist? These, I believe, that's my humble opinion, are actually the really big questions that we should be addressing. And that's, if you're motivated enough, feel free to investigate these questions in the essays that you're going to write. Um, for finance, what does this mean? How do we ensure diversity and inclusion in finance now that we have tech? How do we ensure environmental impact of AI in finance? These are all the questions that I strongly urge, not just you, the entire financial sector to take care of. Finally, and as I didn't really want to, I mean, it's a complicated topic, so I just wanted to leave you with three more or less concrete action points on the financial sector. Um, some of those have already been mentioned by the panelists at the end when Janine asked the question, how do you see ethics evolve? So I was really happy to see that some of the stuff I put on the page were mentioned, I think, by Julie and Claire. So it's always motivating. But the first one is of course invest in your people. There was a really interesting piece of, I think it was a Microsoft survey on leadership in lots of different companies, and they said that now 65% or 75% of them said that, yeah, AI is going to be like a big added value on anybody's resume, but only 40% of those said they would invest in the people. So it's like they think AI is a required skill, but they don't think they should invest in their own people to help them develop this skill. So I think it's nonsense. So of course, do invest in your people, and of course we have huge transformation going on, war on talents, we know it. So upskilling and reskilling with AI coming in is I think a prerequisite for sustainable AI powered growth. Also, when you consider the risk of AI, people not understanding how AI can actually work, people not understanding the risk of hallucination and so on, because simply they've not been trained, is for, I would say, for the company itself, it's actually a major risk. Second point is more on governance. In the paper that is submitted for so a couple of years ago, there's two things I urged. Is one about the governance, the other one is about the vision. I'll address in a minute, but I strongly believe that every company should have a multidisciplinary ethics committee, and I put it between brackets, but I shouldn't actually. I should have bolded it and put it like size 55, like with a real mandate. It's there's a really thin line between having a proper ethical approach and doing ethics washing, and just make sure that you're on the right side of that line. Having an ethics committee with people gathering just to discuss around coffee about ethical issues, but having zero mandate or not the ability to veto any decision, it's not an ethics committee. It's just a group of friends and potentially using the company money to discuss ethical questions, but it's not an ethics committee. So I strongly urge any company to build this and give the company a real mandate. Because AI and tech in general, AI is I mean the trendy or it's the hype at the moment, but we will have further technical questions coming up. So you need your company to have real multidisciplinary, and I insist on this multidisciplinary, because if you only have legal people or engineers, I mean, they will have their own biases, and it's not because they're bad people. It's simply because they think in a specific way, and that makes them really strong, either regulators or engineers or product designers or developers and so on. But you need a lot of different approach, including philosopher, if possible. I think that would be nice for them to get involved in this. And the last one, and one on which I'd like to finish, it was the main piece of the essay that I published a couple of years ago with the prize, is that don't hide behind ethics without ethics posture. And so what I mean by that is that quite often, and not only in the finance ecosystem, it's in a lot of different ecosystems, all the infrastructure pieces, they hide behind, we're just an infrastructure. It's not our role to have an ethical approach. We're just carrying money, and you can think of all the FMI, the financial market infrastructure, either being payment or being, I mean, CSDs and so on. They can clearly say that no, we're just taking the money from one place to another and making sure the financial markets is going well. And I think it's, in a way, it's sort of ethics washing. So I strongly urge any company to, and I'm not saying they're doing it at the moment, but I urge them to be careful of that ethics without ethics approach, because ethics in finance can only happen when and if we all play our part, including, I mean, the FMIs, wherever they are. So these are three more or less more concrete actions, I think, that companies can keep in mind, I think, and hopefully all of you can keep in mind going forward and writing your essays. So feel free to pick those up and develop them further than what I did.
Thank you very much.